Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the latest webinar by the MGAA. We'll just give it another 10-15 seconds to let anyone else join and make sure all your computers are synchronized to the webinar so everyone can hear. So we'll just give it another few seconds for everyone else to come in. So yes, as I say, welcome to the latest webinar by the MGAA. This one is in conjunction with the CII on our Corporate Chartered Insurance Underwriting Agents title, and we'll be talking through for about half an hour, 45 minutes about the history, about the progress that has been made on this. This has been a bit of a journey for the last 2 or 3 years with the MGAA alongside the CII to bring a bit more sort of recognition for the MGA profession and the underwriting agent community, and we'll hear from Melissa in the next couple of minutes on this. Melissa, would you mind just going through to the next slide?
There we go.
Fantastic. Just before we crack on with the main body of the presentation, there's just a few kind of housekeeping points to note. All participants are automatically muted upon entry and will stay muted for the duration. This is purely just to reduce background noise so everyone can hear Melissa. To ask a question, please use the chat functionality. If you wiggle your mouse, a function bar will appear. If you hit the chat button, a panel will open up and you can type a message into that. That will come through to me and I will raise the questions during the Q&A session at the end. The webinar is being recorded, so we can add it to the website for others to use. We don't share any of the data that you provide to us, just from a privacy policy standpoint. And finally, feedback forms will be sent around following the webinar, and that's just for us purely to learn and to do things better and to hear from you participants on what we may be able to do in the future. Melissa, would you mind just going to the next slide? So you may have heard that Melissa is our main speaker, and Melissa is a Professional Standards Director at the CII, leading its professional standards, ethics and conduct activity as a united profession, and she has worked closely with members of her own team to deliver this new underwriting agent title. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Melissa to go through the main body of the presentation.
Oh, well, thank you, Ben, for that kind introduction. As you can see, I hope I still look the same post-lockdown. I'm even wearing the same jacket. So hopefully you'll recognize me from this photo. I'm really delighted to be doing this webinar today, not from the CII headquarters or the CII library, although there's a lot of books here. This is from my study today. So welcome, everyone. So the whole purpose of this webinar is to explain all about the new chartered title for insurance underwriting agents. And this is especially for those of you who are interested in applying. And so hopefully by the end of this session, you should be able to summarize the chartered ethos and explain the benefits and criteria on how to achieve the new chartered designation for both corporates and individuals, and finally understand how the CII supports businesses and individuals in their professional development. So before I get to the nuts and bolts of it, I wanted to pose the question why the CII has introduced this new title and who is it for. Well, over the past few years, there's been an increasing media and regulatory focus on culture in our sector. And as a result, there's been an increasing appetite for professionalism. Now, as I'm sure many of you know, the CII has existing chartered titles for insurers, for brokers, and for financial planners. But prior to March of this year, we didn't have any title for those of you who were neither insurers nor brokers, but were carrying on the role of an MGA or working within one. This is a large and growing sector, as I'm with over 300 firms employing approximately 5,000 people, and it currently underwrites over 10% of the UK's general insurance premiums. So we decided it was time to work with the MGAA and we've been doing this for a little while now, to develop a new charter title for this important sector. And after a period of development, we launched the new title at an event at the Lloyd's Old Library on the 2nd of March this year, which some of you may have been present at. So what I'd like to do is to focus now is on corporate chartered status and explaining more about what it means before we look at specifically the new title for underwriting agents. Corporate chartered status is a shared public declaration of professional standards, and the corporate chartered ethos is a set of commitments from both the CII and chartered firms that sets apart those firms from others, and it's characterized by 3 main themes: nurturing knowledge, client centricity, and serving society. And these 3 elements come together to provide expertise, ethical conduct, and something broader. So at a high level, nurturing knowledge, sorry, I'm going ahead a little bit. Nurturing knowledge is about developing the right expertise and investing in the knowledge of your people. Client centricity is about acting in the best interests of clients in order to drive up professionalism. And serving society is about being a good corporate citizen and building public trust. So moving on now, these 3 elements all come together to create what we call the chartered ethos. And this involves not only a commitment by the chartered firm itself, but also a commitment by us, the CII, to help support firms to articulate what this means. So along with setting the criteria in the first place, the CII is here to make the chartered ethos a living, breathing concept and to help firms to amplify and carry on those commitments to a broader set of stakeholders. And you'll see from this slide the joint commitments and how together these help to build public trust. So what are the attributes of a chartered firm? Well, looking at it from the top right, they are accredited by a professional body with a royal charter. They invest in people with knowledge appropriate to their role. They exceed minimum regulatory standards, and they welcome scrutiny to improve processes and service. They commit to an ethical code and practices that deliver good outcomes, and they have a positive role in society. All this will build public trust in chartered so that the insurance profession will be recognized with what we call parity of esteem with the other trusted professions, such as law, accountancy, medicine, and so on. So what are the benefits of becoming a chartered insurance underwriting agent, I should say? Starting on the left side, first of all, it's a recognized and visible badge of professionalism. And in surveys that we've conducted of chartered firms, 80% agreed that chartered status enhanced the perception of their business amongst prospective customers. Second of all, it helps attract and retain the best talent. In surveys of chartered firms, 90% of firms agreed that chartered status had enhanced the perception of their business as a professional organization for new staff. And thirdly, by becoming a chartered insurance underwriting agent, that gives you automatic membership of a local institute, wherever is most convenient to you. We have over 56 local institutes right across the UK, Channel Islands and Isle of Man, all of which provide a wealth of CPD, events, training, and networking opportunities. So what is the criteria for becoming a chartered insurance underwriting agent? Well, it is pretty straightforward. Starting on the top left, we expect firms to have a leadership team with CII qualifications and membership. So what that means in practice is that at least one board member holds the chartered title and takes responsibility for ensuring the chartered ethos lives throughout the organization. Also, the board must all be members of the CII. Also, we expect firms to have a core membership of the CII. So in other words, we expect 90% of core staff who have an impact on customers to be members of the CII. We also expect firms to commit to professional development and to have an appropriate professional development program in place for all staff. We also expect firms to have an alignment with CII Code of Ethics, meaning it has core values, business practices, and diversity and inclusion policy that aligns with the CII's own code. We also expect firms to have an established training history, which means a 3-year pre-application training, or for Lloyd's approved entities, 1 year. And finally, we expect firms to make a contribution to society, and this is about corporate social responsibility activities. Now, the reason for all the criteria, why do we have it all? Well, it is what the public would expect of a chartered firm. So for instance, when you consult a firm of chartered accountants, you wouldn't need to look hard to find a chartered accountant within the leadership, nor would you find it surprising that all partners would be members of a professional body. So by committing on an individual basis, and as well as a corporate basis, this binds the firm collectively to a program of professional development and ethical behavior. So that's really what it underpins our criteria. So how will the CII support you on your professional journey? I'm going to now talk about the various pathways that we offer to you as an individual to help achieve chartered status. Now, this is a journey with some milestones along the way, including certificate, diploma, and advanced diploma. And each one of these builds on the next and involves a certain number of credits. Once you've achieved the advanced diploma, then you're all set to apply for chartered status. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. Breaking down the milestones in turn, this is the pathway for a certificate in insurance. And hopefully those of you tuning in will have some familiarity with the CII's certificate, and perhaps you'll also be familiar with our diploma pathway as well, with a certain number of compulsory units, suggested units, and building up your credits. And then finally, this is the pathway for an advanced diploma. And again, there's certain compulsory options and certain other units that you can choose to build up the credits that you need. So once you've completed the advanced diploma, then you're all set to apply for Chartered Insurance Underwriting Agent status, so long as it's held alongside 5 years experience in the profession and membership of the CII. Plus you have evidence of 3 years of CPD if requested. And what this shows you is what the chartered badge looks like. So what is the value of chartered status? Well, we did some independent consumer research in 2019 to ask the end customer what they looked for in an insurance firm, and the concept of chartered was right at the forefront. So I've mentioned a couple of these on an earlier slide. What I'd like to highlight here is the 81% that agreed that they would choose a firm with chartered status for their professional financial or insurance advice. And that's a really important statistic there. I don't know if you could see my mouse, but I'm sort of circling around it now because what that demonstrates is a real strong consumer propensity to choose a firm with chartered status. But obviously these other statistics that I've mentioned already do demonstrate what value chartered status has amongst staff as well as prospective customers. So let's move on to looking at a few quotes. This is also taken from the survey that we did of chartered firms, and these clearly demonstrate how these firms value their chartered status and what it means for them. I'd be interested to know if anyone on the line is already a chartered firm, and perhaps they can share their comments in the discussion afterwards. So the CII is committed to helping you get the most value out of chartered status. And this is just some of the ways that we do that. So for instance, we have our chartered newsletter exclusively for chartered firms. We have chartered webinars and podcasts. We have chartered events with other professional organizations, and also our chartered advertising campaigns, just to name a few of the ways that we help you to get the most value out of chartered. And just mentioning those campaigns, this is something that we did in quarter 4 last year. We actually invited firms to join our campaign, and that gave firms an opportunity to showcase their chartered status individually, and we supported them with that, with a campaign that was consistent across all of the different channels, so that it was bringing that chartered message, that consistent chartered message, but highlighting particular firms who wanted to join into that campaign. So also one of the ways that we support our chartered firms, and one of the most the ways that chartered firms really value from the CII is how we help firms communicate their chartered status. So you can see from this slide, we have a wealth of materials to help you to use your chartered brand to the best advantage, and we call it the Chartered Toolkit. And for those of you who sort of CII watchers know that in 2017 we actually rebranded and changed all of our logos. So this is a fresh looking logo that's we rolled out to all of our firms. So this gives you an indication of our Chartered Toolkit. This is found on our website, and it's actually one of the most well-used pages where you can find all the tools you need to communicate your chartered status, including customer handout, animated logo, that's quite fun, wall plaque, web banner, social media graphics, window stickers, amongst other things, all with our refreshed logo. So I've now reached sort of the end of my presentation. I've got a few more slides, sort of anticipating some of the questions that I might receive about corporate chartered status and the new title. So let's have a look at these. First of all, in case you're wondering what the fees are for corporate chartered status, this slide shows the scale of fees for both corporate and individuals as well. Again, this is all on the chartered pages of our website. And you may be asking, well, who can apply for chartered insurance underwriting agent? This is for firms that underwrite on behalf of the risk carrier or taker. So those firms which have the power of the pen. That's how we've defined who can apply for this title. So who would that include? Well, clearly that would include MGAs. It would include cover holders and some insurtech firms who write underwriting algorithms, for example. So these are what the new title, who it is aimed at. And finally, what if you already hold a charter title and want to switch titles? And hopefully some of you on this webinar will be in that category. So if you want to switch titles because this new title will more accurately represent your job role within your organization and to your customers, it could also assist your firm if it's applying for the corporate title. So it's easy to switch. I would say the easiest way to do that is contact our customer service team, either by phone or online, and they can help you, take you through it. I mean, they can do it for you, in fact, over the phone if you call them up. And I've included contact details for them at the end of this webinar. So finally, in conclusion, I hope you agreed this webinar has met the learning objectives of explaining the chartered ethos, the benefits and criteria of the new title, and how the CII supports businesses and individuals with their professional development. I think trust is so vital to our sector at the moment, and in our current crisis, public trust in insurance is critical. And that's why I think it's very timely to talk about becoming a chartered professional to help build public trust in our sector, demonstrate quality and a commitment to doing the right thing. So I want to thank you all very much for listening, and that's the end of the formal part of the presentation. So I really look forward to hearing your questions now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Melissa. That was really interesting. Just as a reminder for all participants, if you'd like to ask a question, then please use the chat function and then type in the panel that comes up. We've had a number of questions come in, possibly some kind of clarifications or reminders, Melissa, but we will run through them anyway. So the first one, can everyone in the business become a member of the CII even if they don't have any qualifications?
Sure, yes, membership of the CII is open to anyone. And obviously there are some commitments that come with membership, such as signing up to our code of ethics. Once somebody becomes qualified, then we would expect them to keep their learning up to date with CPD. But no, we invite applications for membership for anyone working in the sector or in allied sectors.
Okay, great. Another one here was, if you completed modules a number of years ago but not completed the qualification, will they still count?
That is a really good question. I think that's one for the customer service team because I think it probably depends on the individual circumstances and how old it is and so on. So I don't have a ready answer to that, but I would encourage people. I'm just going to go on this next slide here. These people in our customer service team, they are the experts. They can answer your questions and help you with that kind of question straight away.
Okay, no problem. So we can look to maybe get an answer for the person who posed that question and look to get back to them after this, yeah?
Sure, absolutely. Let me help them out individually if need be.
Fantastic. Okay. Another one here is, what is the position for ACII or FCII members who currently do not hold chartered status? I'm assuming they can go and apply as long as they hit the criteria?
Sorry, you said FCII and ACII? Yeah. So as I think on one of my earlier slides, once someone has the advanced diploma, so the ACII, then they are ready to apply for chartered status, providing they have that length of experience. As I mentioned, 5 years of experience. Okay,
fantastic. Thanks, Melissa. Another one here. If a limited company has a trading as title, cover holder arm, can that become chartered?
I'm making a little note of your questions, so I just get the gist of them. So can you repeat that one?
No problem. So if a limited company has a trading as, in inverted commas, cover holder arm, can they become chartered?
So is this a division, or is this just a trading name of an entity, a limited company?
Yeah, it's a trading as, yes.
I think that there are many companies that have a trading entity, and so we have some flexibility in our rules to look at the either the board of the entity, so the limited company, or if there isn't a more appropriate management team that actually looks after the day-to-day running of the company, then we'll look at that appropriate management team and look for appropriate, chartered representation on that team. So yes, there is flexibility in terms of the entity that we would look at to meet our charter criteria. So definitely get in touch with us so we can help you further.
Yeah, so probably advice is apply, and then we'll see see if it meets the criteria.
Don't be discouraged. I mean, the last thing I want to do on this webinar is discourage anyone from applying. I may not have every single detail and nuance at my fingertips today, but I certainly have a team of people that do this day in, day out, and they can help resolve any of these particular queries people have. So that, I would say, in the very first instance, contact customer service, talk to one of our very friendly team members there, and anything that raises any query, it gets escalated to more experienced colleagues who, can resolve any issue that gets thrown at us. So
I'm certainly expecting an avalanche after this, Melissa.
I would hope so. That would be a great outcome.
Okay, so we've got more then. Can we apply if we have a diploma qualified board member and a grandfathering board member, 20 plus years experience?
I heard the word grandfather. I'm just missing something here. A diploma qualified and...
board member and a grandfathering board member.
What do you mean by you mean someone who's switching titles?
I think they're just very experienced. So they filled in the form, but it says we do not qualify as chartered qualification.
So I think what we require, as I said earlier, we need somebody in the senior team who is going to take responsibility for the obligations of chartered status. And that person we look to is somebody holding this chartered title. Chartered Insurance Underwriting Agent title. So anybody who is at the ACII level can easily become chartered. So that's the kind of level we're looking for. Somebody who's reached that level in their qualifications, they take the step to become chartered, and then that way they represent, they sit on the board and represent, they espouse the chartered ethos on the board. So that's what we're looking at. If that isn't on the board, then we'll look at appropriate management team to see if it's represented there.
Yeah.
If there's only somebody at diploma level on the board, then we need to see, if we can help them reach the correct level so that they can become a chartered firm. So again, I would not discourage anyone at this point. Contact us, and if you don't qualify now, we can actually outline the steps that you need to take so that you can qualify at some future near date.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, Melissa. Melissa, you mentioned 90% of staff have to be a member of the CII. Is that all staff, or if not, can you confirm who it applies to?
Right. So we're looking at staff who have an impact on customers. So we would generally regard anyone who's involved in the insurance and the business operations of the company to fall within this remit. So we're not looking at people who are performing a totally different function, like a facilities or building management or IT. You know, we're not expecting those members of staff to join the CII and be members, but we are expecting those members of staff who have a role to play in the business, in the insurance business of the firm, and who ultimately what they do has an impact on customers. Those are the people that we want to join us, sign up to our code of ethics, and pursue potentially learning opportunities with us and qualify with us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Melissa. Just had a question here, probably for me actually. Will you be sending the presentation out to the attendees after the meeting? The answer is yes. We do that on the web for all webinars, and we're recording this webinar, so you can also get access to it on our website as well. A few other questions here. What has been the sort of interest of firms taking up the chartered title to date? We obviously had the launch back in February. What's been the interest, Melissa?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were really proud that we had at our launch, we had 3 new firms that we were able to announce at the launch. And since then, that was about a little over a month ago, we've already had another firm attain the chartered status. And we have a number of firms who are in the wings, and we're just going through their application with them at the moment. So please, by all means, be one of the first and join us and let us help you, see if you would be eligible. But yes, we had a lot of interest, and we're just helping those firms along right now.
Great. Okay, thank you. It's probably just worth, are you okay just a recap of how you sign up and get the chartered status for both a business and an individual, just so we really kind of make that clear?
Yes, absolutely. And I completely understand people thinking, well, is it about the individual? Is it about the business? And I want to make clear that it's both. It's the individuals are the bedrock of the business becoming chartered. So let's look at individuals first. In this sort of early stage, what we're looking for is individuals who have the ACII. They're eligible to become chartered, providing they have experience in the sector, 5 years of experience in the sector. They can become chartered, and they can choose this title. So that's for people who aren't already chartered. Those people who are chartered, but they're holding a different title, like broker or insurer, it's very easy to switch. Just simply call our customer service team and speak to someone about switching. Because if you're already holding the charter title, you can let us know which title is more appropriate to you, and we can make that change for you. In the future, for corporates, who we're looking, first of all, as I mentioned, for a responsible member to hold the charter title on the board of the entity applying for chartered status, and or on the appropriate management team of that entity, and meeting the requirements that are normal requirements for any corporate chartered firm, as I set out earlier. All of those requirements are on our website, the applications on our website, and anyone who would like to talk to somebody in person can simply call this number or contact us by email or web chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a bit of a reminder, the MGAA really want to kind of celebrate those wins on social media. So if you do become chartered and you'd like to get a bit more kind of publicity, then fantastic. I would love to hear from you and your story of how you become chartered, and we can really shout about this, because this is something that we've obviously worked hard on in the last 2 or 3 years. So please do get in touch if you're happy for us to sort of shout out about your success. In terms of
same for the CII, Ben. I mean, we also have lots of publications and places where we recognize our new chartered firms. So that's something that we do as well.
Definitely.
So like I said, be one of the early adopters.
Indeed. I think this is a question relating to the individual title, Melissa. If you switch to the new chartered title, can you switch back at a later date?
Yeah, so it was interesting at our launch, someone asked if you could hold 2 titles at once. And the answer to that is no. We want people to hold the title that's most relevant to their job role that they're doing now. So if it's more relevant for you to hold this new title for your job role now, then please contact us and ask about switching, and we can make that switch. If at a later date you move back into pure broking or some other role where this title would be no longer relevant, then yes, of course, you can switch to a different charter title. We want the charter titles to be appropriate to job roles.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Melissa. We've obviously been very kind of, you've advised that you can move between different sort of insurers and, the chartered title. But in terms of this particular title, how does this kind of link up with the wider CII focus on MGAs, underwriting agents, and the cover holders?
Sure. So we've recognized that there's a real growth in this area, this sector. I mentioned some stats earlier about how many people working in it, how many firms. And so it's something that we recognize that, we need to make sure we're serving that sector with what we do. So that's why we've been talking to you guys at the MGAA, and we've had some really good collaboration there. But we've also been talking to, we recognize that amongst the burgeoning insurtech sector, a lot of insurtech firms are MGAs. So we've been talking to the insurtech trade body as well about how we can support their members. And likewise, talking to Lloyd's, particularly their cover holder accreditation team, to see if we can make it more streamlined for their firms who are going through accreditation. If chartered, being chartered with the CII can make that process easier for them, and vice versa. So we're in some advanced discussions with Lloyd's on that. Because clearly we don't want to make people we don't want to duplicate work and duplicate checking that's being done elsewhere. So we're looking to collaborate further. And of course, we want to make sure that we're serving this sector with high quality CPD and thought leadership, which is why we created the Society of Underwriting Professionals, which is a newly created society that we created last year. It's starting to publish. It has its own website, Society of Underwriting Professionals, its own Twitter page, and so on. So please, anyone who is a member of the CII can join this society, and so that their learning, their CPD, their thought leadership is tailored towards their particular interest in underwriting. So we're looking to develop that further. So please do have a look at the website and share with us any ideas that you might have to help us develop that further.
Fantastic. Thank you, Melissa. Just the one kind of final question that we've got now. So in your mind, what does kind of the future look like in terms of the new chartered title? What does the next kind of five or so years look like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ben. I think we're very ambitious about this. I think we'd like to see, ultimately, all MGAs embrace professionalism, and we'd love to see all MGAs become chartered, and everyone working in the MGA sector to go on a path to becoming chartered. That would be our absolute vision. I think for the sort of looking over a timeline with some of our other qualifications and titles, it's taken, you know, for instance, chartered financial planners, it's taken, you know, a good sort of 5-10 years to really embed that, and now it has a really significant footprint in that sector. So we need to be realistic. I think in 5 years' time, if we had 25% of this sector as chartered, or, you know, some people working within a chartered MGA, I think we would count that as success. So that would be our sort of 5-year horizon, but definitely open for it to be higher.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Melissa. That's great. I've got no further questions that have come through, so I just want to take this opportunity to thank you very much, Melissa, for hosting the latest webinar for us and giving our members a bit more kind of flavour and insight into the new Chartered Insurance Underwriting Agent title. It's been much appreciated. If anyone has any further questions, please just get in touch with myself, the MGA, or anyone at the CII. We'd be more than happy to help you out. The MGA also has its own dedicated website page for the Chartered Insurance Underwriting title with FAQs and additional information, so please have a look on that as well. We do have more webinars in the pipeline through May and June, so please also look at the events page for the forthcoming topics. Thank you very much, Melissa, for hosting, and I wish everyone a pleasant rest of the day.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thanks all.